Today, we are going to examine 3 specific events in history that refuse to fade away. These are events that, despite occurring decades ago, continue to generate questions, unease, and skepticism. I am speaking of the moon landing in 1969, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963, and the attacks of September 11, 2001. Now, as many of you know, the official stories regarding these events are narratives that a significant portion of the population simply does not accept. There are jagged edges in the official record, questions that remain unanswered, inconsistencies that glare at us, and mathematical impossibilities that do not add up, no matter how you adjust the variables. My goal today is not to tell you what to believe. I am not here to force a conclusion upon you. Instead, we are going to look at the official narratives, and then we are going to hold them up against the light of scrutiny. We are going to examine the possibilities and let you think for yourself. We must begin by looking at the visual evidence. The official record exists on film and in photographs. You can examine it with your own eyes. And when you do really look, not just glance, you notice things that should not be there. Let's start with July 20th, 1969. NASA shoots 3 men, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, and Neil Armstrong, into the void. Armstrong becomes the first human being to walk on the lunar surface. This is hailed as humanity's greatest achievement, the culmination of years of labor by 400,000 people. Picture the footage of the landing module descending. You hear the technical chatter, the tension in mission control, and then those immortal words: one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But pause for a moment. Consider the technological context. This was 1969. Computing power was in its infancy. Yet, we are told they had the capability to transmit live, synchronized video and audio across 240,000 miles of space with relatively minimal delay. The footage shows astronauts bouncing in low gravity, hopping like children. And then the departure, the lunar module lifts off from the surface straight up with no visible thrust, no flame, and no resistance. It looks almost too smooth, too perfect, like a model being pulled by a string. Then there is the phone call. While on the surface of the moon, President Nixon holds a telephone conversation with the astronauts, broadcast live to the American people. He tells them that because of what they have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. That phrasing is specific. It speaks to the idea of bringing the divine down to the earthly realm. But look at the technical aspect. The conversation is seamless. There is no static, no significant delay. It sounds like a call made from next door, not from a rock 250,000 miles away, using 1960s radio technology. But the most disturbing visual evidence comes after they return. Imagine if you had just accomplished the greatest feat in human history. Imagine you had touched the face of the cosmos. You would be ecstatic. You would be vibrating with the energy of that experience. Yet, watch the press conference given by the astronauts upon their return. Look at their faces. Look at their body language. A reporter asks Neil Armstrong a simple question. When you were on the moon, could you see the stars? Armstrong hesitates. He says he doesn't remember seeing any stars. These men do not look like triumphant explorers who have just conquered the impossible. They look terrified. They look guilty. They look like men who are being interrogated for a crime they know they cannot hide. Why would American heroes look so broken after their greatest victory? Now, shift your attention to September 11th, 2001. We have all seen the footage of the towers falling. But I want you to watch it again, with the eyes of an engineer, not a traumatized observer. A plane hits the building catches fire, and then it collapses. But it doesn't just fall, it collapses perfectly straight down, descending into its own footprint at nearly free-fall speed. In the history of architecture, before or since that day, fire has never caused a steel-framed skyscraper to collapse. Buildings damaged by fire typically list, sag, or collapse unevenly. They do not implode symmetrically. But the true anomaly is Building 7. This was a 47-story skyscraper across the street. No plane hit Building 7. There was no massive structural impact. And yet, at 5:20 in the afternoon, it came straight down, exactly like the Twin Towers. It fell perfectly into itself. A plane did not hit it. Why did it fall? The physics of it resemble a controlled demolition far more than a structural failure caused by scattered fires. Then there is the behavior of the leadership. On the morning of the attacks, President George W. Bush is sitting in a classroom in Florida. He is the commander-in-chief. His chief of staff, Andrew Card, walks up and whispers in his ear, "A second plane has hit the second tower. America is under attack." This is the moment the world changed. And what does the president do? Does he jump up? Is he rushed out by the Secret Service to a secure bunker? No. He sits there. He sits there for 7 minutes, watching children read a book about a pet goat. Standard protocol suggests that when the nation is under attack, the president must be moved immediately. No one knew if another plane was heading for that school. Yet he sat there, visibly calm, almost as if he was waiting for a signal. When a reporter later asked him about it, he was dismissive. This is not the reaction of a man surprised by a catastrophe. It is the reaction of a man who knows exactly what is happening and knows he is in no danger. Let us go back further to November 27, 1963, Dallas, Texas, the assassination of JFK. The official story, cemented by the Warren Commission, is that a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, acted alone. Case closed. But look at the motorcade. JFK is the President of the United States, riding in an open-top car. Look at the security. The Secret Service agents are trailing in the car behind him. They are not on the running boards. They are not flanking him. If you understand close protection, you know this is suicide. The security arrangement that day left the president completely exposed. Then look at the route. They took the motorcade through Dealey Plaza, a route that slowed the car down and created a perfect triangulation of fire. We are told Oswald fired 3 shots, but the magic bullet theory requires us to believe that one of those bullets entered Kennedy's back, exited his throat, entered Governor Connolly's back, exited his chest, shattered his wrist, and lodged in his thigh, and emerged in pristine condition. The physics of this are laughable. Then consider the aftermath. Oswald is arrested. He screams that he is a patsy, a fall guy. 2 days later, while being transferred in the basement of the police headquarters, a room filled with armed officers, Jack Ruby walks right up to him and shoots him dead on live television. Look at the footage. The police officer next to Oswald freezes. He doesn't react. He allows Ruby to close the distance. Oswald, the only man who could tell the truth, is silenced before he can stand trial. Years later, Robert F. Kennedy runs for president. He threatens to reopen the investigation into his brother's death. He is on the verge of winning the nomination. And then he too is assassinated by a lone gunman who claims no memory of the event. 2 brothers, both threats to the established order, both removed by lone nuts. Now let's look at the strange details that bind these events together, the breadcrumbs left in the dark. A month after 9/11, the debris from the World Trade Center, the evidence from the biggest crime scene in American history, was shipped to China to be melted down. They destroyed the forensic evidence before it could be properly analyzed. Why? Then there is the passport. We are told the heat was so intense it vaporized the aircraft and the bodies of the passengers, yet they found the passport of one of the hijackers, pristine, on the street below. How does paper survive an inferno that melts steel and vaporizes bone? Consider the context of government operations. In 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff presented President Kennedy with Operation Northwoods. This was a classified proposal to stage fake terrorist attacks, hijacking planes, blowing up ships, and blame them on Cuba to justify a war. Kennedy rejected it. A few months later, he was dead. The government has admitted this document is real. They have admitted they planned to stage terror to justify war. Consider the entertainment industry. 6 months before 9/11, a show called The Lone Gunmen aired a pilot episode. The plot? A secret faction within the U.S. government hijacks a civilian airliner by remote control and attempts to fly it into the World Trade Center to blame terrorists and justify a war in the Middle East. Exact scenario, 6 months early. Then there is Larry Silverstein. 6 weeks before the attacks, he signed a lease for the World Trade Center. The buildings were filled with asbestos. They were a financial liability. He overinsured them specifically against terrorist attacks. After the attacks, he sued, arguing that because 2 planes hit, it was 2 separate attacks, entitling him to double the payout. He won billions. And on the morning of 9/11, this workaholic man who never missed a meeting happened to have a dermatologist appointment. He wasn't there. Now I know what the skeptic says. You say the government is too incompetent to pull this off. They can't even fix the potholes. How could they fake a moon landing? Or you say, someone would have talked. You can't keep a secret that big. These are fair points, but they lead us to a terrifying conclusion. We have 2 options. Option A, the government is telling the truth despite the physics, despite the anomalies, despite the coincidences. Option B, they did it and they don't care that the evidence doesn't add up. In fact, maybe they want us to see the cracks. This brings us to a concept called revelation of the method. The idea is that true power does not hide, it reveals itself cryptically. There is a belief among certain occult circles that if you are going to commit a great evil, you must tell the victim what you are going to do. If they do not stop you, they have consented. This clears the perpetrator of karmic debt. There are 3 reasons why they might leave clues. First, learned helplessness. If the population figures out the truth, that the government killed the president or staged a terror attack and nothing happens, the people become broken. They realize that resistance is futile. When you see the crime, point at the criminal, and the criminal simply smiles and remains in power, your spirit breaks. You accept your powerlessness. Second, karmic responsibility. As I mentioned, the belief is that by leaving clues, by putting the plot in a TV show, by leaving the physics impossible, they have given you the truth. If you choose to ignore it, if you choose to believe the comfortable lie, that is your choice. You become complicit in the deception. You share the guilt. Third, attention capture. These events are rituals. They are designed to be burned into the collective consciousness. Everyone remembers where they were when Kennedy was shot. Everyone remembers 9/11. These are global traumas that bind the population together. By controlling the narrative of these traumas, the architects of these events control reality itself. They become the authors of history. Now, let's go deeper. Let's look at the numerology. The architects of these events seem obsessed with numbers, specifically the number 33. Kennedy was killed on 11/22. 11 plus 22 equals 33. The moon landing was in 1969. 9/11 involves the numbers 9 and 11. And the number 33 appears constantly. Why 33? In Freemasonry, there are 33 degrees. The 33rd degree is the highest honor, the pinnacle of enlightenment within that order. But look at the geography. Draw a line around the globe at the 33rd degree north latitude. Look at what sits on that line. In the ancient world, you have the cradle of civilization, Babylon. You have Baghdad. You have Damascus. You have Jerusalem. Follow that line to the New World. Dallas, Texas, where JFK was killed, sits on the 33rd parallel. Keep going west. The Trinity site in New Mexico, where the first atomic bomb was detonated, is on the 33rd parallel. Cross the Pacific to Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the cities incinerated by atomic fire, sit on the 33rd parallel. The man who ordered the bomb dropped was Harry Truman, the 33rd president and a 33rd degree Mason. This is not random. This is ritual geography. The 33rd parallel connects the old world of divine obedience, Jerusalem, with the new world of human godhood, America. The philosophy driving this is simple. Humans can replace God. What makes God God? 3 things. The power to transform matter, the power to destroy kings, and the power to create life. We split the atom, transforming matter into energy. We publicly executed the king, JFK. And now we are on the verge of creating artificial intelligence, life from nothing. If you can do these things, you have proven that man no longer needs God. This is the ultimate secret at the top of the pyramid. This brings us to the structure of power. How do they keep it secret? They use compartmentalization. It is like a pyramid. The people at the bottom, the 400,000 workers at NASA, the ordinary FBI agents, they are good people. They are patriots. They don't know the big picture. They only know their tiny piece of the puzzle. They are told what they need to know to do their jobs. Only as you rise do you see more. By the time you reach the top, you are compromised. You are initiated. You are part of the club. The primary tool of this power is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is slow, stupid, and siloed. But secret societies function across the silos. A brother in the CIA talks to a brother in the Pentagon who talks to a brother in the media. They coordinate while the official channels remain clogged. They are the deep state, not a formal organization, but a network of allegiances that supersedes the official organizational chart. Let's return to the moon for a moment. Why would they fake it? There are 5 possibilities. Possibility 1, it's all real. We went, we saw, we returned. The anomalies are just misunderstandings. Possibility 2, we went, but we found something we couldn't show the public. Aliens, ancient ruins, something that shattered our understanding of reality. So, they filmed a fake landing to hide the real one. Possibility 3, we went, but the footage was unusable due to radiation or technical failure. So they recreated it in a studio to have something to show the taxpayers. Possibility 4, we went to deceive the Soviets. We needed them to believe our technology was better than it was, so we faked the capabilities to win the Cold War. Possibility 5, we never went. Humans cannot leave low Earth orbit due to the Van Allen radiation belts. The entire space program beyond orbit is a theatrical production. The objection is always, the Soviets would have known, perhaps, or perhaps the Soviets were playing the same game. Perhaps at the highest levels, the Cold War was just another dramatic production to keep the populations in fear and the military budgets high. Consider the warnings of Wernher von Braun, the father of the American rocket program. On his deathbed, he reportedly warned that the military-industrial complex would manufacture a series of threats to keep the money flowing. First, the Cold War and the Russians. Then, terrorists and rogue nations. Then, asteroids and environmental collapse. And finally, the ultimate card, a fake alien invasion. Look at the news today. We have moved through the Russians and the terrorists. Now we hear about asteroid defense. And recently, the Pentagon has started admitting that UFOs are real. They are releasing footage. They are holding hearings. The narrative is shifting. Are they preparing the ground for the final act of the play? This brings us back to the core question. Why does this matter? It matters because if these events were staged, then we are living in a manufactured reality. We are like the people in Plato's cave, watching shadows on the wall and thinking they are the world. The moon landing told us we had conquered the heavens. The JFK assassination told us that no one is safe from the hidden hand. 9/11 told us we have a new eternal enemy and must surrender our privacy for safety. Each event reshaped the collective psyche. Each event made us more fearful, more dependent, and more confused. So where does this leave you? You have a choice. You can dismiss everything I have said. You can say it is crazy, that the government loves you, and that the news tells the truth. That is the path of comfort. It is a warm blanket. Or you can sit with the discomfort. You can look at the footage of Building 7 falling and admit that your eyes tell you something different than your television does. You can look at the nervous astronauts and ask why they aren't smiling. The goal here is not to make you paranoid. It is to make you independent. The powerful count on your apathy. They count on you saying, well, what can I do about it? They count on you accepting the script they have written for you. But once you see the strings, you can never unsee them. Once you realize that reality is being curated for you, you start to take back your own mind. You start to ask, who benefits? Who gains from this fear? Who gains from this war? Who gains from this division? The architecture of illusion is vast, but it is not perfect. They leave cracks, they leave fingerprints, they leave the number 33. They leave the passport on the sidewalk, they leave the building falling when nothing hit it. They leave these things because they are arrogant and because they believe you are too asleep to notice. Prove them wrong. Do not believe me. Do not believe the official story. Believe your own eyes. Believe your own critical thinking. The world is much stranger, much darker, and much more constructed than you have been led to believe. But in that realization lies the only true freedom you will ever find. Keep your eyes open. Question everything. And remember, you are not confused by accident. You are confused by design. Thank you for listening.